Hello and good morning. KansasFest 2025. Um, my name is Petar Piskaric, and behind me you'll see my various stuff in my lab. Uh, Currently, I'm working on a few projects, but for this presentation, I'll be taking you through my setup and display for the 1986 dealer display for the Apple IIgs, and hopefully you'll find some interesting things in there, and I'll be telling a few little stories along the way of how either I acquired things or what makes some of the things on the display special in some way or another. Um, the source for this will be primarily a video that I had from the Vintage Computing Festival Southwest this past June 20th. Um, a friend of mine actually took some video of the display and they got some really good shots of it for the 2GS display anyway. And it was one of four tables that I had this year. So yeah, I'd like to get started and show you what we have going on here. So this is the left-hand side of my display. We'll get to a full view here in a couple moments. But the left side of the display was kind of set up as my old, let's see, there would be the Akron Canton area computer land in Ohio when I first bought my system. And my display basically is set up very similar to what they had, except unfortunately I didn't have really good contact points for the really stubby short stands for the Bose audio speakers that they were also pairing with the 2GS at the time. And we'll get going on that. And basically in here on this side of the display, I have an image writer buffer card that was out at the time. A friend loaned me the box underneath the Bose speaker that has an Apple modem, I believe 1200 in it, and then the Apple IIgs box. And this is actually my Apple IIgs box from childhood for the machine, the casing anyway, that's sitting there on the table for display. And I happened to pick up my GS in '86. That was September 27th when they were released. I got mine 2 weeks later because that's when my computer land actually got the first shipment of the 2GS. Let's see. And then yeah, that's a little bit of my Franken Mac Amiga 500 on the side that she was taking. And then down here, um, a couple shots of some boxes I had to make the display look a little bit even. So we got a Super Serial card on top of an Apple 3.5 drive. And then the box on the bottom, I believe, is a Apple IIgs monitor box that another friend loaned me. And it was kind of neat to actually have some of the real boxes. And then in the upper right, you can see part of the store sign that I'll talk about here in a couple of minutes as we get in here. So there's basically me talking to another fellow user. He was playing Task Times in Tonetown. There's my booth number and my little YouTube channel called Petar's Place. If you happen to catch it, yeah, please join and subscribe. All right. So this basically comes in and talks about the sign. So this sign is kind of special because it was given to me in trade. I'm still working out the trade with them. Eventually we'll get square. On this sign, which was actually used in a Dallas, Texas area dealership when the GS was released. So this sign actually was in a store. I thought it was pretty awesome for the display. So yeah, we're about to make history all over again. And yeah, and they pretty much did, I think, with the GS, with what they actually did with the sound and the graphics and everything. Even if things were a little bit limited upon release, and I'll talk about that as well very shortly. Let's get going. So I get a better view of the full display. So I had the boxes on the left and the right for different new items. And I had the Bose speakers on the left and the right. And I think this is where we get a nice shot, yes, of the Bose ornamentation. So these speakers are actually 100% from a dealer at the time. And what makes them dealer only upon release was the fact that it's the Bose black logo, but it has the apple shaped logo in the multicolor. And there's a little piece of plexiglass that sits on top of that particular Apple logo on all the ones I found. Currently, to date, I have 5 sets of the Bose Apple speakers in my collection that I've collected over the years. Um, I've got 3 sets of the ones with the Apple logos, and then I've got 2 sets where it's just the square with the rainbow colors in it. And all of the ones I've found so far have that little piece of lucite uh, plastic, I guess, transparent plastic sitting on top of the little square. That's kind of cool. And basically what happened with these is that at the time, Apple Records was suing Apple, and as part of the GS and Sonic saga as well, part of the deal that I think we all kind of know from the time, at least, was that Apple couldn't put their logo on anything that made music. So very quickly, right about the release time, maybe a month or two after, that's when Apple rebadged all of the Bose speakers for the consumers to buy. And they ended up getting basically the square rainbow instead of the Apple logo on their speakers. And I've got the image writer buffer card there, and then the 5 1/4 controller up top. And those actually have the products in them. Um, Now we're into the section where I actually have the 2GS, and it's the casing is my original WAS Edition 2GS from when I bought it. That's second week after release. And one of the reasons that I chose to create this display, and I did a similar one last year at VCF Southwest as well, but this year is kind of special because that particular 2GS is loaded up with the ROM A, so basically the dash A chip for ROM, so it's a ROM 00. But by some quirk of fate, I was able to actually hunt down and find, and was offered the right to purchase the VGC in a machine that was actually and also an very early release date GS. That was a machine out of Australia that had the defective AMI-A VGC in it. And that was the version of the video graphics controller chip that was in my original machine in that particular casing. I can only say it's the same casing because my particular motherboard was blown up in 1992 while I was in college when I was attempting to create a very early VGA graphics card for the 2GS, which worked for exactly 5 seconds for a double E class I was taking. And then I managed to short out the entire card setup, and it took out my GS as well. And that's when I learned the wonderfulness of the old LRO computer sales that is now OWC, Other World Computing. So back when he was a teenager, when he was running LRO, he was basically selling repair parts for the GS as well. So it has another motherboard in it. But that particular motherboard is now sporting the ROM 0 and the bad VGC controller, which basically that defect will give you pink fringe in double high res monochrome mode, which goes along with the 2GS early system discs, which basically they shipped out a version of mouse desk which is now basically we're calling A2 desktop. Um, and that particular video mode, basically any white dot on the screen would have a pink tinge around the pixel. And it only affected analog RGB mode. So basically, what you would get would be the desktop looks like the pink in the faces on the screen in this particular video. So it's basically you had sort of black, sort of white, and pink as your color choices in that double high-res monochrome mode. I've heard it referred to before as basically it was the puke video mode, and that's about what it looks like. But that took about what 30 years to find that particular chip again, because Apple in their great business practices, well, it was defective, so they wanted to replace it. They replaced it for free, but they kept all of the chips. And just one of those weird collecting things, I had to find one over the years. Just like also finding a ROM 0 chip anymore too. They're hard to find, but not as hard to find as the defective VGCs. So let's continue on with that. When I bought my first GS, I only bought the 3.5 drive and a 5.25 at the time of sale. And then later on, we did buy the joystick that's there, and then the ImageWriter 2 printer, which then basically was an upgrade to my Okidata 82A that I've talked about for years. So yeah, I could actually do graphics and everything else on the machine. For the show, I also did bring several different versions of the early operating systems. I'll stop it here for a second. This particular Apple computer bag was given to me by another local friend, I believe last year for the display. And it was also from a different Apple computer store that was local into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I just thought it was actually pretty cool to see the old bags. And then up the upper right, see if it actually shows it more in there. There we go. The Checkmate technology made the memory saver, which basically I would say was the early version and a better version of what Applied Engineering later came out with for the RAM keeper for the GS. And the Checkmate technology one was out very shortly after release. And yeah, happened to find one of those recently, and it works identical to the AE RAM keeper, except it has a battery pack that takes, I think it's AA batteries. I have to go back and take a look at the box again, but it's AA batteries that will keep it running, the memory backed up for about a month. Yeah, and one of the benefits is that it won't catch your 2GS on fire like the AE RAM keeper can do. I almost had that happen to mine many years ago, and that's why I basically clipped off that feature and only use it as a double RAM card with the slot mover. And the slot mover for this Checkmate device looks basically identical to the Applied Engineering version, which is pretty wild. All right, and then above that, we can see the start of kind of like my release day ephemera. I have some of the old Apple keychains there. The pen. The pen is kind of neat because I actually got that from, let's see, I believe she was the niece of Steve Wozniak, who lived in the Columbus, Ohio area, and the pen was part of a yard sale purchase I made from her. And that was kind of cool. And she gave me her name and on a business card, and it said, I believe it was Jennifer Wozniak, and I asked her about the last name. She says, "Yeah, that's my uncle. That's Steve." Up in the middle, this black chip, that's another defective VGC, and it's also an AMI-A, which is defective, but that one came from a prototype motherboard that was hit by lightning by another local friend of mine. And unfortunately, it really is defective because the lightning basically killed it hard. It won't do anything. So that was my closest piece I had for last year for the early VGC. And then finally I got the working one here a little while ago. In the top there are the crystal apples that the dealers got, and each dealership got one of them. I've been collecting them over the last probably like 5 years, but actually hunting for them ever since about 1994, when a friend of mine in Columbus had one for many, many years at that point. Um, I forget how he cut his, but I always kind of wanted one. But then I started finding them on eBay for reasonable prices finally a couple years ago and started buying them. So these are two of the five that I currently have in the collection. And these two are actually basically off by ones. So the one on the left, I think, is 741, and the one on the right is 742. I have no idea which dealers they went to, but it was kind of neat that they were consecutive values. I think this is gonna, yeah, a couple Apple boxes. The one on the left, I got at Computer Reset back in the warehouse one day. It's another close-up of the logo on the other monitor. And then this part just goes into some of the printers that I brought for the display. So I had a Platinum 2E with an Oki Data 92. And then the other one was my 82A running on an Apple II Plus. So I'm going to stop that here. So that's pretty much the display I had. And I can go back to a few pictures that I have that I'm going to show. So here is a really nice shot of the pretty much all of the display. Um, It also has my little kick in there for 8-Bit Shack software, who was also local to the Dallas area with me as well, which is just awesome to have new software so local. Um, a really nice shot of the Apple IIgs sign. Um, I just really kind of like it. It just survived all these years, and it's made out of a from what I was told by another graphic artist that visited the booth, he was saying that that particular paper was basically an early form of Tyvek, and it's kind of like coated, and it doesn't rip, but you can like delaminate it pretty easily by ripping off the top layers with a little piece of tape. But I found that out last year. But for the most part, it's still in like perfect shape, other than that one little spot I have. So yeah, so it's just kind of cool. It's an actual sign that was actually in a store for the release. This particular, yeah, the time when this video was taken in the pictures, I was running test times in Tonetown because Rebecca Heineman was actually at the show this year again as well. And she is also local about 25 minutes west, or no, sorry, east of where I live, which is kind of cool. But unfortunately, I missed her as I was probably rocking around the show, talking to other people at the time. Um, I'm sure after the talk here, you can I'll answer any questions that you have about the display of anything you've seen on it. Let's see here. Anything else going on? Yeah, so the joystick I picked up probably for that Christmas. I think we got it along with some software. Um, Also, at the time we bought it, we bought Music Studio 1.0, which was copy protected at the time. And then it was a big deal when they released Music Studio 2.0, which was, as they said, free to copy. Um, I thought that was kind of unique at the time. Um, and then they went to 2.01 was a final update for that software, at least the official. There's been some unofficial versions that got it up to, I believe, 2.03 instead of 2.1 or 2.01. So yeah, the Apple box is my original box. Um, the original boxes for all the peripherals there um, pretty much are all on loan at this time from my different friends that wanted to help out for the show. But the modem or the image writer 2 buffer card was mine. The 5 1/4 was mine, and and then the other GS box. I think those are the three that I had. Um, the stack of floppies actually is hooked up for the show, and I was showing off different things you could do. I had ended up doing a system build for another friend with Copy 2 Plus and get him going. And then also was doing some print shop in color on the ImageWriter 2 with a color ribbon that I rebuilt 2 or 3 years ago, um, and that was pretty successful. Let's go on to this one, and there's back another view of a close-up for the Apple logo, and yeah, yeah, you can basically see that lucite covering on top of the Apple symbol. So that's kind of cool. And this is probably the best set that I have that show the Apple logos. Um, Pretty much all of them need to be retrobrighted, cleaned, bleached, whatever. I just haven't got around to do that quite yet. And then here's another close-up of the case. So again, yeah, one thing I missed in the other part of the video is up there in the middle, there is a gray Swatch watch looking kind of thing. And it's actually a an off-brand Swatch clone, but it does say Apple IIgs at the top in text with the Apple logo on the bottom. And it was the only, say, Apple swag basically that the 2GS had when it was released. That particular watch I ended up buying as defective itself because it was not working and not running by the seller. And by the time it got to me from Oregon to Texas, it suddenly came back to life because it's still working today on the same battery it was shipped with. Not sure what, but hey, that's pretty awesome. Got a really good deal on it that way as broken, but it turns out it works pretty well. And I searched a long time to find a watch. Um, the plastic Apple box I got at the last year VCF, and it's just a 3.5-inch plastic holder that desperately needs retrobrighted. Then the cardboard box was found at a computer reset that I mentioned. Yeah, the two Apple crystal apples are basically two of my crown jewels of my collection. Um, yeah, those took a long time to find, and lots of negotiations, believe it or not, with the sellers for those to get them at decent prices. Um, let's see. I also have a set of the Apple IIc playing cards that were um, reproduced and created a few years ago, so I was kind of happy to get those. Another shot of the full 2GS system, and I think that's about it. Yeah, and there's another view from this side, and then finally back to the main thing. So yeah, that was basically my 2GS display for VCF. It was a lot of work to put together, but it was so much worth it to me to show off and talk to the different people that came to the show as well. And also here, just sharing a little bit my passion for the Apple IIgs and what it can do, what it did do, what it didn't do at the beginning, and then what the future looks like. And that's one of the projects I'm working on currently. And Ed Enough will be giving his presentation, I believe, tomorrow on the A2 FPGA card. So if you've been following any of the work I've been kind of doing on Facebook and releasing out, you'll know that I'm working on that A2 FPGA, at least compiling things and recompiling things and trying to get the Apple IIgs audio working over HDMI. And it's an experimental core that he's working on, and I'll let him introduce all the fun stuff tomorrow. But I can say that I was able to get it actually fully working in one of my other 2GSs. So in slot 3, you get HDMI video for the video modes, but then you also get the Ensoniq dock 5503 and the Sound GLU cores implemented in the FPGA via Verilog. And then in the end, basically, you essentially get digital audio out of the 2GS, and it's phenomenally high quality, even though it's 8-bit. Um, my last current experiment that I did 2 nights ago that worked is I finally got the four 2x4, yeah, no, 4x2 matrix splitter, HDMI. So now I have the A2 FPGA card feed the splitter, which also has an audio extractor in it, and I'm extracting it over to um, Toslink um, digital audio, and I'm pushing that into my Mac Pro 4.1 on the input side, and then patching that throughout to the speakers or headset, and we're recording. At least with the monitors and gear that I have here at the house, essentially it's noise level, it's pro grade. I'm getting like minus 108 decibels as the noise floor. And on a 2GS, that's just absolutely amazing. Um, once Ed gets his presentation over tomorrow, I'll probably start releasing more of the stuff I've been doing with it on Facebook. So you can look forward to that. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions or feedback. And thank you for going through my presentation this year. So just wanted to say thanks again and have a great Kansas Fest.